If you have ever tried to reformat your digital patterns into a booklet size pattern print format like this, you will know just how difficult it can be to try and get everything to fit, including your cutting table. That can be the hardest part. I'm going to be sharing a couple of tips and tricks I've picked up over the years as a ghostwriter for getting those stupid cutting tables to fit on those teeny tiny pages. So if the problem is just that your cutting table is too long, so it fits widthwise, but it just is too long for the page, what you can do is just leave half of it on one page and the other half on the next page. So just continue it on the following page. And that's what you're seeing here. So I've got the bottom of one page where I've left the top part of the table, and then I've continued it on the following page. I've done this in between fabrics, so I didn't cut one of the fabric instructions in half. You wouldn't want to do this in the middle of the background fabric and have half of the background cutting instructions on one page and half of them on the next page if you can help it. If there's nothing you can do about it, there's just that many cutting instructions for a single fabric. Do what you got to do. It's not the end of the world, but try not to do that. Just as a rule, try to cut it in between fabrics. And when you do that, you do have to repeat a little bit of the header information just so that they're not having to flip back between pages in order to figure out what each column is. And I like to put a little continued at the top of that page to indicate to the reader that the rest of this fabric cutting table is somewhere else. This is not the first instance of it. There are more cutting instructions elsewhere. If the problem is more so the width of the cutting table, so it fits lengthwise, but it just doesn't fit widthwise, what you can do is just kind of spread it across the pages. This is going to be a really good option for you if you like to write patterns with more than 3 or so sizes. Usually 3 is the max that you can fit on a single print page, and sometimes it's not even that, just depending on how detailed your cutting instructions are. So this is a really good option for it. What you're seeing here are basically 2 facing print pages in a booklet. We've got the crib and throw size on one page of our print pattern and then the queen and king size on the other page. You could also do this front to back on a page. There's no need for them to be facing. That's why we've repeated this header information, the fabric colors, so that you can separate those. It can be front to back and it doesn't matter. They're not losing information by having it in this format. So this is a really good way to break up a very large cutting table without having any issues with your pattern or for your reader. The third option I have for you, if your cutting table is just so big that it will not fit either widthwise or lengthwise, is to actually just take it and rotate it 90 degrees to put it across the spread. So what that would look like is if you have a booklet like this and you open it up, you would basically be turning it this way and you would see your cutting table kind of vertically along a page like that. It's kind of like those old magazines you used to get when you were a kid that had a poster in the centerfold, right? You'd open it up and you'd turn it sideways and have this much, much larger document. That is totally an option that you can do. Now, this is going to be across 2 pages within a booklet. So one thing to remember is that you are going to probably have a couple staples there in the center. So keep that in mind when you're orienting your cutting table. Try to get those staples in an inconspicuous spot. So right on one of kind of the lines in between the cells in your table is a great option if you can, or just not through text. It's not the end of the world if it does go through text. You can usually read it, but just keep that in mind when you're laying out your pattern. Now, this is not totally 100% ideal. I get it. We don't really want to have to turn things sideways in order to be able to read the cutting table, but it is a heck of a lot better than the alternative, which is just to keep shrinking your fonts until it all fits on the page. Please don't do that. Most quilters are not in their 20s and 30s, and after about your 30s, vision starts to go. I know from experience. And pretty much anything smaller than like 8 or 9 point font is going to be more or less unreadable. And even that's on the low end. You really want to stay kind of towards like the 9 to 10 point font range if you can for stuff that absolutely needs to be read. And the cutting table is 100% that. This is one of the areas and one of the texts in the quilt pattern that everyone is going to have to read. This is how you get your pieces cut. It's vital information. So if it's a really small font, most people aren't going to be able to see it. And it's going to get really frustrating, right? If it's so small that they can't read it very well, they're going to be prone to making mistakes, and that's not good. So I would say limit yourself to like 9 or 10 point font. 10 would be ideal, 9 at the very worst, but nothing smaller than that. And in general, most of your larger cutting tables aren't going to fit on a page at a 10 point font. It's just what it is. So if your cutting table is this big, rotating it, while not ideal, is definitely going to be the better option for you. All right, I hope you found that helpful. If you did, make sure you are subscribed to my channel, and I'll be back next week with another Tech Tip Tuesday. See ya!